With America fighting and losing the war against the coronavirus, the next crisis is already beginning to take shape, which is, of course, mass homelessness, which normally is a disaster, but would be an even bigger disaster in the middle of a pandemic. So now, Business Insiders reported that nearly 20% of the 110 million Americans who rent are at risk of eviction by the end of September. Now, this is based on a report from the Aspen Institute. And the issue, of course, that they raise is not only the fact that there's going to be so many, about 20 million people that could face eviction, but many of these people happen to be Black and brown renters. And so they're going to be hit, those communities are going to be hit massively hard. So now, this information comes from the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Project, right? And so they estimated last month that somewhere between 19 to 23 million American renters could be evicted, depending on the unemployment rate and other factors. They used a model that combined data on renters' household income, savings, housing cost burden, and of course, pandemic. And so that's important to note. So now, right now, the federal government has banned evictions in federally assisted properties until July 25th. That is getting close to running out. Now, there are cities and states that actually have put in measures to ensure that renters are protected. However, that's also running out. And so that's why August, September are going to be you're going to see a gigantic spike in homelessness, in evictions. And so that's horrible. And so, look, we've got a virus that's raging. We've got unemployment that is still incredibly high. You've got hot spots like Arizona, Florida, and Texas that are already, in some cases, frozen or started to roll back their reopening plans because of these coronavirus outbreaks. Well, when you have that happen, these people aren't able to go back to work. And then couple that with the end of the unemployment benefits, the extra $600 a month in federal benefits, you're looking at a catastrophe, an absolute catastrophe. The worst hit will be the poorest among us, obviously, ones that are already disadvantaged, Black and brown households, according to an April 2019 report from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Black and Hispanic households are more likely to be extremely low-income renters, make at or below the poverty line, or 30% of their area's median income. And so, look, without being able to go back to work, without that extra unemployment benefits, without any money to help them, they're screwed. They're screwed. They already face a shortage of affordable living options. And look, 1 in 5 Black households and 16% of Hispanic households qualify as extremely low income renters. And so there is not a lot of, options for these people. And unfortunately, again, it gets worse. It gets worse. I mean, what do you do when you don't have an income anymore? What's going to happen, right? I mean, I know what I'd do, right? If I was in that situation where I lost my job due to coronavirus, and it's not opening up anytime soon, and my benefits, are going to run out. What I would do is I would make sure that my family's fed, and that we have adequate supplies for survival. That's it. I mean, what else can you do? What else can you do? Sure, you could pay the rent, but then how do you eat? These $1,200 checks, by the way, that people got, that's not enough. It's not enough to stop this. In some places, it doesn't even cover the rent. So, again, we need something that is better. We need an actual solution to this. Or else, again, look, we already know what this is going to look like because it started to play out in Wisconsin, right? So let me give you the information on that. Moratoriums on evictions were lifted on Wisconsin on May 27th, right? And of course, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported that in the first 2 weeks of June, eviction filings rose by 42%. And that's across the state compared to last year. 42%. And that's just, in Milwaukee, right? It's going to get worse. More stimulus isn't enough. We need a national rent freeze. We need a UBI so that people can catch up, right? A UBI, by the way, would also help the landlords because they would also get that money. And they could collect that money, and then people would still be able to pay their rent once the moratorium is lifted. I mean, look, this moment, this pandemic, what it does is that it calls for aggressive left-wing government policy. Anything else is insufficient. You've seen what we've done in America, and you've seen that it hasn't been effective at all. Massive unemployment. It's insufficient what we're doing, not only to, of course, prevent a worse outcome, but also to recover when this crisis is over. And unfortunately, we are not doing any of that. We're just making the situation much, much worse in the future for millions of people. And that's not going to help our economic recovery. And that's certainly not going to help them survive COVID-19. It's going to help spread the virus. And things are just going to continue to get worse. We have to do something, and we've got to do it now. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.